Hello, good morning, everyone. Tammy, excited to co-chair with Leslie this wonderful committee and being able to advocate on behalf of women business owners as well. So F.U.E.L actually launched in 2012, and it really encourages and prepares women business owners to immerse themselves in public policy and advocacy. And so we hope today, as you go throughout this session, that you will find strength, nuggets, insights to allow you to be on that front line of women business owners, and also being able to advocate on behalf of yourself as well. And we just want to make sure that each of you understand about F.U.E.L, which is Females United and Empowered to Lead, and all facets of government, current issues, new laws, regulations, as well as administrative matters, are those things that we observe and make sure to pay full attention to, and we encourage and invite you to dive in along with us. And so we're excited today about the wonderful panel that we have, and it's going to be moderated by Tracy Justice, who is the owner of Be Bold Coaching. She is a thought partner, executive coach, DEI strategist, and strategic planner, a keynote speaker.
Okay.
She's going like, is that me?
Oh,
AI didn't write it, I did. Think tank mastermind facilitator. She works with business leaders looking for practice, business, and people strategies to lead their teams and organizations to success. And so we are excited today to have her facilitate this panel. I'm going to get out the way and turn it over to her.
thank you so much, Tammy. All right. So like Tammy said, I am the CEO and founder of Be Bold, Be You. And so we're going to go ahead and get started, right? So, since she's already introduced me, I don't think there's any need for me to really introduce myself any further. So I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself. Peter Luster, from Vice President, Governmental Affairs at Rise Indy.
Yep, she said, Pete Luster, VP of Government Affairs at Rise Indy. My background, I have a deep background in politics and campaigning, and so I'm happy to be here today. And so thanks for having me.
State Representative Robin Shackelford. I represent the east side and the far east side of Indianapolis. So happy to be here.
Good morning, Dave Ober. I'm the Senior Vice President of Operations and Finance for the Indiana Chamber. But the reason I was asked to be on this panel is I'm a former legislator serving, elected in the same year that Robin joined the Indiana House of Representatives.
Super cool. Thank you. So our session is going to be about, I want to run for office, now what? So I'm going to start off with a little snippet, a personal story that I had for running in office. So in 2021, I was in a situation where I was working for local government. I was working for the trustee's office as the HR director. And I got to see firsthand some of the things that were going on behind the scenes. And I didn't like it. I didn't like some of the things. And, there was a part of me that said, I can go out and complain and talk about and say, this person should be doing this, that person should be doing that. But you know what I had decided? I decided I'm not going to do that. I am going to run for office, and I'm going to make my voice heard that way. Now, I didn't know what to do. I'd never run for office before. I'd never, I don't come from a political family, but I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So I reached out to a councilman, a town councilman in our community that I'd already formed a relationship with, different party than I am. But I said, hey, I want to run for office. What are some of the things that I should do? And he kind of gave me some ideas. And then I said, okay, I'm going to put my name in the, make it official and go down to the center and fill out the form. So when I did that, I had people reach out to me from the community and say, oh my God, Tracy, you're running for office? How can I help you? I had someone come help me get a list together and help me do a mailing. I didn't win, but I was 100 votes away. Right, thank you, I appreciate that. But that led me to meeting someone, Whitley Yates. I know you probably know Whitley Yates. And a lot of people were asking me, do you know who Whitley Yates is? And I was like, well, no, I don't know who she is. Met her, had an opportunity to go through. Now, this is not about political parties, but I had an opportunity to learn the system with the Republican Party, and I had an opportunity to go through the whole level and understand everything, and that was just awesome. But not everybody's going to have the same story as me, right? Like, not everybody's going to say, oh my God, I want to run. So I want to run for office. I'm going to start with you, Peter. Well, no, actually, I'm going to start with Robin. I'll start with Robin first, if that's okay.
Okay.
So I want to run for office. Now what? Now what?
So I have three things come to mind. First, you need to know the landscape. So you kind of did it in reverse order, but
Mhm.
I would start there first. So definitely know what position you're running for, what it does, know who's already in the field, who's going to be your competition, and look at what is it actually going to take. Do you actually want to do the job, the day to day? Next would be to gather your team because you're going to need a team to run. So go ahead and get that finance director, that fundraiser director, your outreach specialist, your policy director. Those are some of the key positions that you need to fill. So if it's your best girlfriend over here, that's going to be your fundraiser person, the one that always has the Tupperware parties at her house, the one that knows how to raise all the money for church, grab her to help you with your fundraising. The policy person, the one that reads all the time, that looks at all the stats, that know the different research that's out there, grab that person to be your research person. I just want to say you don't have to have professionals on your team, but at least get people that are skilled in those areas to be on your team. And then just plan out your campaign. Look at what the whole cycle looks like. Take your team and start planning out. And I would say the most important thing will be able to raise those funds, just enough to do your campaign. You don't have to raise enough funds to match your opponent and match an incumbent that's been in there, but at least enough funds to do what you need to do.
Thank you. And then David, since
Yeah.
you've also ran too, I'd like to hear.
Of course. Well, I agree with everything that Robin just said. I would back it up even maybe a little further. And we know people who are serving in offices that are not really, that's not what they were actually trying to run for. So you really need to think about, do I want to be a legislator? Am I okay being one of many making, finding consensus and making decisions? Or do I prefer to be in more of an executive role where we're managing day to day of a portion of government? And once you know what your skill set is and what your interest is, then I think knowing the landscape and making sure that first you're running for the right office for you, where your interests lie. And then the first question that people are going to ask you when they see your name is, why are you running? And having an answer to that question is probably the most important thing that you can do for your campaign is, why do I want to be in this position? And then the logistics of, what is my district, who lives in this district or who lives in this community, and how am I going to get their votes and how many votes do I need? Like, those are all of the logistical items that come much later. But I guess the other thing that I would add just briefly is, your name is on the ballot, but uh, it's not just you that's involved in this. I mean, my family got questions about, why I saw that your son is running or your brother's running, and they're just as much a part of this. Like, you are selecting to live your life publicly, and your family is going to be impacted by that. And so having their support and having their buy-in to that decision is really important at the front end.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, Peter, you would provide a different perspective to that.
Yeah, I would double tap on everything that they've said. And in the beginning, especially when you say I want to run and you've decided what office you want to run for, you definitely need to do the research, as Representative Shackelford just said, know the landscape. And so no matter what political party you're thinking about running for, when you think about running for office and you've sat back as a business owner or just somebody in the community, and you see campaigns, you see politicians sort of come and go, you're seeing a sort of snapshot of what that is of a campaign. But the grind of a campaign is really real. And so doing your homework and research, not only about the position, but what it looks like to actually campaign, like what the time and sacrifice is going to take to actually campaign. And then back to the landscape, no matter what political party it is, think about think that office you want to run for, who's in that position, are they doing a good job? And if not, what is your solve? And then also the constituents that's being served, how do they feel about the service that's been offered to them by this elected representative? So all that information sort of builds into your decision making into deciding to run, because it is a commitment, and you need to know the hill that you're up against, because inevitably it's going to be a hill, whether it's an incumbent that's not popular or an incumbent that's very popular. So,
Thank you for that. So I kind of want to take it back to the beginning stages, right? Because you all have been doing this for quite a few years. Representative Shackelford, who were you before you ran for office?
So before I ran for office, and you guys probably don't even know this, I actually ran for Senate back in the day. Also, I see one person raising their hand. So I ran against an incumbent for Senate. I was a project manager, minding my own business, just working in the business world. And then my good friend suggested that I run for office and run for this seat. Um, a lot of people didn't like the current senator. So I was like, okay, I never thought I would be an elected official that early in my life. I had always thought maybe one day I would be an elected official. I majored in public affairs at IU, got my master's in policy analysis. So I was more of a policy person. And working in project management was perfect for me because I'm one of those organizational people all about time management and making sure projects are complete. So when she approached me, I'm like, okay, maybe I will run for office because he was my current senator, which we never saw him. So when you're starting out, like I said, I'm a research person. So I had to research like what is he currently doing? What are his bills? Let me look at some of the legislation that he has carried. Let me see if anybody knows him like in the community. Is he attending these events? So yeah, you actually start doing that oppositional research like early when you're going to start even thinking about running for office. And then you just start thinking about, okay, can I do this? Do I have enough time in my work schedule? Because keep in mind, you're running for office and most likely you're still employed. And will your employers be in an agreement? So this lady back there was my employer. We have to make sure you got to have a conversation with your employer, or if you're self-employed, do I have time to do this and be able to run my business? So those are very viable questions, especially now that I'm self-employed and a legislator. You got to think about doing these campaigns. So yeah, I think all that comes into play. And then the fundraising part is just reaching out to your friends and family, because at this point, nobody knew me. I was not in politics. I didn't have any family members in politics. So now I got to educate my family members, educate my friends, educate them enough to give me money and support me and be volunteers. So you have to get that buy-in early on from those friends and families that may not be engaged in politics at all. So you become an educator, you become a marketer, you everything all in one as you start running for an office.
See, wow, I love that because I didn't do any of that stuff. Any of that stuff. But on the back end, I realized, like, now I know how I would have implemented all those different things that you're saying. Thank you for that. Now, Dave, what about you? Who were you before you ran for office?
Yeah, so in probably 2010, I graduated from college from Purdue Northwest in December of 2009. Moved back home and started working for a media company in kind of web development. I was just a computer programmer, and got interested in politics towards the end of my college career. Was in student government and came down to the state house and did some of those exchange opportunities. And so when I moved back home, I realized like I have this interest in politics. I like the policy. I like the grind of the campaign, and so I want to get involved. And there was an open seat on the Noble County Council in Northeast Indiana, and decided I was going to run for an open seat. And ran against three other people, including the sitting sheriff, and lost. Came in third. And you learn a lot from losing a campaign. What do you need to do the next time if you want to be successful? But the most important thing I learned was I don't really want to hold a local office. I wanted to be at the state house. And so back to what I originally said about knowing what office you want to run for, knowing what your skill set is, and like trying to find the office that best suits you. I didn't want to be a local fiscal person. I wanted to be a state legislator. And so In 2011, when they redrew the legislative districts for the entire state, I found myself in another open House seat with no incumbent. And so you also have to decide, I think, before you put your name on the ballot, do I want to run against an incumbent, or am I looking for an opportunity where I'm not challenging somebody? It's an open seat, it's an open opportunity. There'll be other candidates, but I think the barrier to entry is lower when it's an open seat versus challenging an incumbent. Other people might disagree with that, but that was my perspective.
Oh,
But and so I signed up to run for the state legislative district, and the district was pretty much home territory for me. Areas of the state that I've known since I was, growing up, and there were three other people, and I just from the time that I ran for council, what I learned was the way to campaign best for me was to go door to door. And so I knocked on thousands of doors in rural Indiana, which is not an easy thing to do. It's very time consuming. But no one else does that in rural Indiana. It's something that you see more in suburban and urban districts where it's easy to get to doors. But in rural Indiana, that's a huge time commitment. And so that's what I did, and that was the game changer in my campaign. That's what I did differently than my competitors, was taking my message of why I wanted to run for this office directly to doorsteps.
thank you. Now, we've been talking about the grind of the campaign. Peter, what are some of the grinds, or some of the things that you see that people could do? So what are some of the things that you see when you're helping people with their campaigns?
Um, some of the things that I help candidates with is identifying the strengths of their campaigns, the strengths of their network. So who's in their network, who's influential, that they can lean on. Because a lot of times when you first starting out, you got to look at your network and sort of power map to some of the folks you need to talk to be able to run for office. Because sometimes, the saying is like, "Oh, well, who sent you?" Sometimes you gotta kind of got to power map your way to have some validators to also speak for you, and to also vouch for you that you would be a good candidate. And so with candidates, a lot of times we'll sit down and we'll do that power mapping. And anytime there are gaps, sometimes for me, I may be the person in between who can fill in the gap to make a connection. And so that's one thing. And then also fundraising, which is a big part of it, looking at the candidate and their ability to fundraise, unless they're independently wealthy and they could be a self-funder. So identifying how much it's going to cost to run a race, and then if you're not independently wealthy, what's it going to take for you to be able to raise the money, and how to reach out and find those folks who can help you raise the money that it's going to take to win a race. Because again, when we just sit back and just sort of see campaigns, there's a lot of things we don't see in fundraising, which was mentioned. It's a big part of it, depending on the office that you're running for. So,
So, Peter, I'm going to ask you another question, and maybe just to, help everybody understand, maybe even help me understand
mhm.
a little bit more of what you do too as well. So a candidate comes to you. What does that look like? They say, I want to run. They come to you. What do you do from there?
Well, the first thing, if somebody comes to me and they say they want to run, I look at the landscape. I mean, because even for me, because I want to give advice, and part of that advice is let me see who's there. And if it's somebody, not just because I know them, but if I know that they're there and there's a large enough power structure there for them, because it is politics. So you got to understand that reality. If you got a strong county chair that's going to stand up for this person you're going to run against, or if there's a structure in place of other electeds who's just going to be like, I'll tell them, I'll say, look, you're going to be up against something. This person may not be doing well to you, but you're going to be up against something, and it's going to be hard. So that's one of the first things I do, is look at the landscape to see if it's even winnable or if it's even doable. And then two, um, the partisan side of it is, if you're coming to me and you're a Republican, also in conjunction with, let's look at the landscape, or if you're a Democrat, and let's see what the split is. What is the district you're running in? Is it 50-50 DNR? Is it 60-40 R&D? So looking at that to be able to see what you're up against, because there's also the primary. In a primary, if you are in a district that's heavily Republican or heavily Democrat, your race is that primary. It's not the general election, it's that primary. And so looking at that and seeing, okay, what is your message to unseat this incumbent? Or if it's an open seat, then that looks different also. So when Representative Shackelford talked about the landscape, these are some of the things you have to look at, because it's easy to say in this country, yeah, we get to say, I want to run for office, and you can go fill out the paperwork and go run. But there is a landscape, a reality that, I mean, that you really have to face um, before you step out there. And so what I think I tend to provide, I hope, is what that landscape looks like, particularly here in Marion County in Indianapolis. So.
Now, I saw both of you shaking your heads to what he was saying. Is there anything that was coming up for you that you want to share?
I did want to put in, so when you're thinking about running for office, and in order to think about this landscape is you have to involve yourself in that landscape.
Yeah.
So I always say, one, like start volunteering on someone else's campaign, because then you really get to see how a campaign actually works. You get to see who those people are involved. Whatever you're going to be running for, if you're running for a particular issue that's getting you out there, you want to see change, go and meet with those people that's currently advocating for that same change, because you need to know the players and then you need to insert yourself within the players.
Mhm.
So right now, if you're just on the outside and you see this whole structure and you start to see, okay, I'm running because I want safer streets. But then there's a whole organization, nonprofits that works on safer streets. There's elected officials that's been working on it. Now you have to start building those relationships, because you want them now to start supporting you and you want to start learning from them before you go out and throw your name. Because if you're over here and you want safer streets, but then there's an executive director over a nonprofit that's been working on safer streets for 10 years, they're going to have the backing. They're going to have the backing of elected officials.
Good.
So you have to start now putting yourself within the landscape of, this is what I want to start working on. So let me start getting into that environment.
Very good.
Great point.
The only thing I would add is political parties can be very insular. And so if you're a first time candidate and you have not been involved in, Republican or Democratic organized politics, if you've not held an office before, if you've not attended dinners or, breakfast meetings, like it throws up even more barriers. And so if you think that you might want to run for an office, or you've decided I'm going to run for an office, getting involved in those, the party
clubs.
organizations, the clubs, attending, I call it the rubber chicken dinner circuit, where you get invited to, it could be fish fries, it could be chicken. The food is usually not very good, but it's your opportunity to go out and meet people, extend your network, and identify who it is that you need to know within that district or within that county or community that you're running for, that you can hopefully make that connection and then add them in your column when it comes time to put your name on the ballot. You've got somebody out there that, to what Peter says, these people will vouch for you. They're in your corner. When somebody asks who are they supporting for a particular office, they're easily going to say, well, I met this person, they're running for this office, and this is who I'm backing.
Yeah. Something else I add. A couple years ago, somebody came and I'm also the former executive of the Marion County Democratic Party. Somebody came into the our office and said that they was running for president of the United States, and I was like, wow. And they wanted my advice, and so it was after most of the primaries had already happened.
Oh,
And so I'm sitting here, and how somebody's talking to you, and you kind of in a blank space, and you can't hear them. I'm like, okay, she's way too late for this. And so, but she wanted advice, like getting the campaign off the ground. And I'm just gonna back up to say we ended up leaving a conversation, and it almost felt like I was insulting her, but I was not trying to do that. But what I said is, it's really too late. But also, if you know you want to run for something, because sometimes you just want to do something, you want to impact the change. You probably don't even know what the issue is. But I would say, to double tap on what they've just mentioned about getting involved, at the precinct level, you can represent your precinct as a precinct committee person. Here in Marion County, we got precincts, and so depending on there you go. So depending on the party that you're in, I would talk to your county chair about being appointed, or you can run to be a precinct committee person. And what that does is it begins to establish a base for you, and that base starts off at the precinct level. And as you begin to branch out, your base can expand out as you start to do more and more as you join these clubs, as you get more involved. But so if right now you just like, man, I know I want to do something, you don't know what it is, you could be start to look at the precinct level just to begin to familiarize yourself with party activists and folks who pay attention to this stuff and to represent. I always say, because a lot of folks they don't understand the precinct, but I always say just think about your precinct as your neighborhood. It's a little bit bigger than that in most cases, but
You all had mentioned something about like when you join a party, the organized party. I struggle with the organized, that's the part I think I struggle with. So, and then what I mean by struggle with is just that, you have your own thought, you have your own mindset, but then you come into the party and then you kind of feel like everybody's telling you have to think this way, you have to do this way. And it's just like, it hurts my stomach. So, but for you, have you, like, have you done, like, is that something that you've had to encounter, or maybe it doesn't bother you, but how do you navigate that? Hey, we're all going to do this. Hey, we're all going to think like this. How do you navigate that in your roles?
Go ahead. I have a lot to say. So
I think, especially like younger people like us, you're never on the same page with the party. But I tell people, if you want to win the game, you got to get on a winning team. And right now, there's only two teams in politics. So you got to pick one or the other. I understand you want to be independent and you want to be an independent progressive thinker. But at this day and time, there's two teams. So whichever team is, I say at least 50, 60% of your thoughts and who you will want to go with, you're going to have to go with that team. Now, once you get on that team, it is chaos. It is like unorganized organization because you got all these different individuals, even though you're on a team, everyone is still an independent and everyone's still an independent thinker. So as you're trying to gather and herd these cats, you still can keep your individuality. You still can say, okay, this is what I stand for. The party may be way over here, but you may be more in the middle. So your messaging may not be extreme as the party is. So you keep your own messaging, your own identity, but it still has to be like in collaboration or under that party umbrella. You can't go too far. So if your party is right here and you want to be right here, you can't go way over here. Or you're going to get kicked out the party,
Mhm,
Yeah.
or you're going to have to leave the party. And we've seen that happen. You'll get kicked out the party, or you're going to have to leave. But you got to be able to navigate that. In the legislature, we always say we're not voting on a party. We're not voting on behalf of the party. I'm voting on the behalf of my constituents. And we represent diverse constituencies. I represent 65,000 people. So 65,000 people all are not Democrat. They all are not way over here Democrats. You got some moderate, you got some Republicans. So I have to represent my whole district. So you do get into those party fights, but being your own individual, making sure you're staying where you believe in, and then making sure you're representing the people that you're supposed to be representing, then you'll get along with the party because the party is going to be the party. First of all, the party is only going to help you so much. I think people, I just want to make sure I mention this, is when you start running, people are always like, well, the party didn't give me money, the party didn't support me. That is not the party's job.
that's right.
They will not give you money until they see you raising money. And then if they see you raising money, they may give you a little bit, but you're not going to get that much. So my first race, they wanted me to raise at least 40,000 before they would give me anything. I'm a new candidate. I don't have 30 or $40,000. My whole campaign was $20,000, ran on $20,000. So that meant I didn't get any contributions from the party. The Senate Democrats finally gave me $1,000 after I bugged them to death. But you got to keep in mind the party is more there to help you with technical support, to help guide you through the process. They'll help introduce you to different people, but it's going to be you that's doing that primary work. And since you're doing that primary work, you can stand on your own principles when it comes to dealing with the party.
I love that. I took some wisdom from that. Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
working with the constituents because they were the ones who put me in this in that
Yes.
role. For sure. Love that. Did you want to add anything?
Sure.
Okay.
So you're all business owners and you are crafting your product or your services to meet the needs of your customers and your clients, and that is politics. So one of your customers and your clients is the party, and that operation it's archaic. It doesn't function well. One of the reasons one of the reasons why, well, I was an elected Republican. The reason I'm not any longer an elected Republican is because I do not fit into this new party mechanic. It's moved away from where I am as a person, and that makes it you knowing where your customer is and knowing, can I bridge the divide to meet my customer where they're at today? And that answer was no for me. But other people will move to where the customers are, and so I think that's where you see, and I can speak to the Republican apparatus now, like that's where you see people that we're more traditional Republicans that are more towards the MAGA side of things. They're going to where the electorate is so that they can remain electable and they can seek higher office. And so I don't like party politics. I wanted to pursue policies that I was interested in and pursue solutions to problems that are really critical to my constituents. That's hard to do now. I think it's hard to do on both sides of the aisle, but I look at it, you all understand how to meet your customers' needs. That's what you're doing with a campaign is, where are my customers? What do they want to see in a candidate? How do I serve their needs? And then you design your campaign around that.
Thank you. Now, as NAWBO is the National Association for Women Business Owners, so we want to see, more women run for office, move into, running for boards and just getting more involved in that. But we're not seeing that many women do that. What are some of the things, like, from all of your experience, right? Because you were director of the Democrat Party
Yeah.
for
Marion County.
Marion County.
Yep.
So with all of your experiences, what are some of the things that, what are some of the resources or tools that you all see that more women can take advantage of to feel more empowered to take that first step to run?
Well, anytime if I'm working with a candidate and it's a man and he's going up against a woman, I don't care if it's an incumbent or what. The women been having the advantage for years now. That's just the reality of
We're
it.
not taking advantage of it, though.
No, I don't think people are taking advantage of it, because I think it's easy to see the male power structure that's dominated this space for so long, and if you're just you running your business every day and you really not tapped into that, it really has been a sea change. Right now I'm involved in school board races, and there's a male incumbent up top, and there's a female who's in the race, and she's third on the ballot, so the male is first, another female second, and then my candidate who's third. So she's got a
Okay.
so typically, if she had ballot placement, I would feel good about that. But what's happening is, and this maybe just too much information, but because there's two women on the ballot, they're going to kind of split that, because women are going to the polls and they are voting for women. They want to see women in power. So we've been seeing that, and um, this year, I think there's going to be a bigger turnout with women. So for me, even if I'm recruiting candidates, I'm looking for a woman first, like always.
Okay.
And I can tell you, a lot of the parties, they're looking for women first. Now, there may be some. Again, you got to look at the landscape, because that's not always the case. But right now, women on the ballot are doing really well.
Okay.
So I would say some of those resources, and I encourage everyone to run for office, all women to run for office, because we need more. Women are winning because, when we're more organized, we're more social. We're more social, so we know all the parents, we know everybody at the party, we're going to talk to everybody, and that equates to votes. But it's like, how do you use that network that you have, that power you have now to run for office? First, get in contact with another woman elected official in a position that you want to be in, and ask, can you be her mentee? Can you follow her? we are more than happy to have people come and look and see what does it look like to work in this seat. And we're always trying to recruit more women, but you got to start building that connection, build that relationship. Just call them up, get in contact. You'll be amazed at who will have lunch with you. He'll meet with you monthly and start connecting you to that contact. Then there are so many national organizations now that support women. Just Google. There are so many PACs, and those are the people with the money. So you got all these women national organizations that want to support other women, especially in these states where there's not as many women. A lot of times their application process is not that long. They usually want you to do some type of training. One of the organizations that I got a grant from is called Highland Project. So it was one of those national organizations of Black women that just wanted to help Black women. You didn't even have to be in politics, but their whole thing is power and legacy. So I submitted my project because I want to see more people advocating. I want to educate people, especially women, on how to advocate. They were giving each woman $100,000 for their project.
Wow.
So I got that grant, and then that's what I'll be implementing
Yes.
soon
Wow.
is this advocacy works project.
Yes.
Thank you. And so when I was running for office, you get to meet some of those national organizations that's out there for women. A lot of times is as soon as you put your name on the ballot, they'll find you because they're strolling around, they're going around and they know all the other women. And when they see your name on there, then they're going to contact you. They will keep their eye on your race. They will follow you on social media. So as they start seeing you doing more, and especially if they think it's a winnable race, even if they don't even think it's a winnable race. But if they see you working, then they'll start contacting you. So those are just some of the resources that out there. The other thing I would say is most caucuses, most elected officials have a women's group. So at the legislature, our women's group is called Power, and that is all the female legislators, Republican and Democrat, together as one group under Power. Get to know those women caucuses, whether if it's at the local, the state, or the federal, and actually go introduce yourself, see how they can help you out. Because those are the groups, even though we try to not to be so political because we're nonpartisan, but there's events that we have, there's fundraisers that we have that you want to be involved in. So the main thing is just treat it like any other thing, like you're treating your business, the networking. Start inserting yourself in some of those networking events and start taking part in the whole process. Because as Peter said, the time for women is now.
Okay.
This is like the hottest time now.
Get it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is many of the parties have created programs to help different types of candidates kind of get integrated in and how to run a campaign. So I'm familiar with Republican politics. The Lugar series is exactly the program for females who want to get involved in Republican politics. They will teach you all of the ins and outs about how to run campaigns. The Farm Bureau used to do a campaign school. I think they still do a campaign school. I'm sure that the state Democratic Party has
Who's your women forward?
Who's Your Women Forward is a similar program that is focused on women who want to run for office or be involved politically. I like your suggestion about finding mentors, and the best mentors would be an office holder that is a woman. They've been through the gauntlet of running a campaign. They've been successful. They're now navigating party politics as a woman office holder. And so those are all fantastic resources if you're interested in getting more involved. And I also think too, it's like, what are you interested in? Like having a voter being influential. You don't have to be elected to be influential. So your advocacy through NAWBO and other organizations and trade associations can be as effective in making change as being an office holder yourself.
I love that you said that because I think I'm playing with that. You know, maybe I don't have to be in an actual office. Maybe it's about being influential and helping advocate other women as well. Oh, and then you said something that made me remember. So this year I ended up running for office, but I wasn't going to run for office. But then somebody called me last minute, the day before the final deadline, and said, "Tracy, how come I don't see your name on the ballot?" And I was just like, "Because I'm not running."
Wow.
And she said, "Well, there's just too many men." on the ballot. So I need you to put your name. So I did. I went in and, I didn't win, but I was 7 votes away. So they're like, okay, they're like next year. I'm like, I don't know about next year. The next time, but I wanted, so Julie did share an article with me, Out of Bounds, and I just wanted to share, like, for some of you who may be in here and we're thinking, okay, who may be thinking, okay, you know what, I think I might want to run. I think that that might be my next step, but I might not be sure. So this was a great article of something that you can do, maybe to kind of test yourself and see if you ready to really expand in your local government. I know you said you're not about local, but I like local because I think that when you start local, in my opinion, if you start local, then you understand the community, you understand your local community, and then you can expand and then start, so it makes sense when you get to the house, what the local communities are really, what they're looking for, because you've been working boots on the ground with them. But investigate board representation in your own town, city, or county. Go to your local board meetings and just look. Maybe you don't want to say anything at that first time, but maybe just look around, look at the board, and just see, how diverse is it? Is it diverse enough for you? And if it's not, say something. You can tell your local elected officials, because when you show up at the town council meeting, those board meetings, you have an opportunity to provide a public comment, and that public comment goes in the minutes. Do that. Put yourself on the public comments, talking about that you want to see reflective representation in your community. Advocate for transparency. Sometimes they're not telling people that, election is up, you should be running. They're just keeping it to their, to their little small group. And sometimes that's where you see the career politicians, right? The people that stay in office for about 10 years, 11 years, and they want you to vote for them again. Tell them that, you want to see transparency. You want to understand, what do I need to do so I can run for office? Because I want to run for office. Do not gatekeep. The other thing is, apply to serve on a board where you live. Be bold, step out. You don't have to know everything. Sometimes the best way for you to learn is just to step out and actually start trying it out, learning, and then you might see where that can go for you. And then, of course, like what people have done to me, and I hope that we all do today, is encourage women in your life to seek appointment. If you know somebody who would be really good, really great, like what they did with Representative Shackelford, you should run. Do that. Do you know somebody that should run, who's sitting on the talent? Fire them up and get them to run for office.
Right.
Okay, so then we're wrapping up. So is there any last words before we leave and then end our session?
Yep, I'll start. I'll just say, if you're thinking about running for office, just remember, nobody really goes to school to learn how to be a politician. Nobody really goes to school to learn how to run a campaign. You just got to get out there and do it. And then the profile of a candidate, Councilman Graves is a city county councilman here. A few years back, I asked him if he wanted to run for office. He's like, "Oh no, man, I don't think I have the background for that." But these days, today, people are looking for, and he a few years later did decide he wanted to run, so now he's elected. But these days, people are looking for real people that they can identify with, that are authentic. And so the days of needing, this sort of Ivy League background, this perfect sort of um, historical biography of yourself, those days are gone. So any flaws or anything that you think is holding you back, stand that up and be yourself and run for office, because people are looking for real authentic people. And so I encourage anybody who wants to run. And then lastly, because there was some training programs that was mentioned, I should say that Rise Indy also has
Okay.
a candidates and campaigners training program called Circle City Leaders. So it don't matter what party you're in. So we're training folks to run for office
Okay,
too. So
cool.
just make that plug.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you for
Yep.
sharing that.
Mhm. So I would just encourage you. I know women seem to overthink. And so you're like, oh, I don't think I have enough experience. I want to do this, this, and this before I even think about it. Because we've laid out some of those things that you should take part in, that you should research, you should build those connections. This is a job that basically has no job description. So you're making your own job description. There's no training program. So you're training on the job. But you've been through that before. This is not the first time that you had to train on the job.
Mhm.
So, do we need you? Yes, we need you. Is this the time? Yes, this is the time for you to get started. And just come with solutions. So, one of my pet peeves is you have candidates that they just want to run, but they have no solutions. They know the problems, We know the problems. Your constituents know the problems. They're looking for help. They're looking for solutions. So when you do decide to run, like have something in mind, have some solutions already planned out, which that will require some research. That will require getting into the meat of things, getting into it to see actually what has been done before, what hasn't worked, and then what you can bring to the table differently. We're looking for people to think out the box. There's no reason you need to come and say, okay, I want to do the same thing. I want to do this structure. Because, like I said, there is no structure. We got little deadlines here and there, but basically, this field is an open field where you write your own structure, you lay out your own plan, your own game plan, and then execute that plan. So, we definitely need you.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is to piggyback off of what Robin said, which is, I mean, there's no job description and the bar is very, very low. So if you even think you might be qualified, you're overqualified. You should run. Because we need quality candidates. That is the only way we are going to get back to normalcy in our political institutions in this country and in the state is for more people who are serious about the work that they're doing, who aren't running for it's not that the only reason you're running is because you want to hold an office and have power. You want to solve problems. We know what the problems are there, but to what the representative said, there are too few people who are focused on solutions. So as you think about running for an office or getting appointed to a local board or getting involved in a campaign, I mean, just think about why you're doing it. That's what people are going to connect with is the why behind the decision to seek an office or to get involved in a campaign or to become more involved in your political party.
Thank you so much for this wonderful panel. I've learned so much, and I know all of you, hopefully you've taken something away for yourself as well. Thank you.